at Camp Sukran that was handed back to Japan this March. A Health Ministry panel.
The governor of Okinawa says that the political aspects are too strong, and it seems like an appeal to the public in spite of the authoritarian attitude, and the prefecture residents will not be able to accept this.
A Health Ministry panel says prescription drugs are being distributed at prices an average 8.8% lower than government-set standards. The gap is to be taken into consideration in a government review of medical service fees for the next fiscal year. The panel today released its report on the degree prices of prescription drugs are in line with government-set standard prices. The standard prices for doctors' service fees in medicine are expected to be reviewed for fiscal 2016. The 8.8% gap is likely to lead to a cut in the standard prices for medicine by some 600 billion yen.
Now today's feature. A small gift was delivered from Japan to the United States last month. It was a small origami crane. We made a copy of the crane 2 centimeters in diameter. It's almost as big as the original. It was folded by Sadako Sasaki, who was exposed to radiation from the atomic bombing of Hiroshima in 1945. She later developed leukemia and died at the age of 12. After the bombing, she continued folding cranes as a way of praying for recovery. A statue of her stands at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. Her crane was delivered to the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library and Museum in the United States. The late president authorized the use of atomic bombs against Japan 70 years ago. Materials supporting his decision are on display at the library. So why did the library receive Sadako's crane? It had served as a liaison between Japan and the Daniel, the grandson of Truman. The story began 16 years ago when he read a book that his son had brought home.
And that's the book. Again, that's the book that
The title is Sadako's Crane. It's about Sadako's folding of origami cranes as a way of praying for recovery from her illness. He said he had never thought deeply about the downside of atomic bombs. He said he was shocked by the book and felt the sadness of atomic bomb survival.
in American history, the history that I grew up with, my grandfather always said that he used the weapons to shorten the war and save American lives. But really, it shifted everything. It was the first time that I had learned what it had been like to be a victim of an atomic bombing.
Daniel began to rethink the meaning of the bomb attacks on Japan. His story was reported in a newspaper 10 years ago. Sadako's brother Masahiro read it and was impressed. He decided he wanted to meet Daniel, a grandson of the U.S. president who authorized the use of the bombs. Masahiro dared to get in touch with him. They met for the first time 5 years ago in the U.S. They discussed the issue of atomic bombing and identified with each other. Masahiro says he asked Daniel how he felt when he learned that his grandfather green-lighted the attacks. He says Daniel told him frankly that he was distressed by the fact for some time. Masahiro showed him an original crane folded by his sister.
Crane out of it and put it in my palm and told me that that was the last crane that someone folded before she died. And at that point he said, would you come to Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And you really can't say no. The story and the crane and Sadako have a lot of power.
Daniel visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki 3 years ago. Before going to Japan, he was worried that he would be criticized by Japanese people when they learned he was Truman's grandson. He heard about the experiences of A-bomb survivors and learned directly from them about the misery of the attacks. He said he was also and instead hoped for peace. This would never be repeated. He says not only his children, grandchildren, and their children, but all people of Japan, the US, and the world should never experience what he did. Daniel said he felt as if he could find out how to face history.
Not one survivor apology. The majority of them simply want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Harm was done on both sides. People suffered on both sides. And if both sides just acknowledge that and move forward together with empathy and understanding, that's the way to...
Last month, Daniel met Masahiro again before the crane donation ceremony. He attended a meeting with American high school students. In the United States, the majority of the public of Hiroshima and Nagasaki helped end the war and saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Daniel wanted to let the students know that it is possible to overcome differences in historical views by knowing the Japanese and U.S. positions.
My question was, what is your opinion on people believing that the atomic bomb was the only way to end the war?
Masahiro says it would be important to recognize the difference of education between Japan and the United States.
Aim is there, it's not a divide.